You could buy this house without needing any cash, without having credit, and without even needing credentials. Meaning you could be anything. You could even be, hold on. My dog peed on me when I grabbed him. You could even be a dog. All right, time, pause the, I got piss on my leg. That is how many real estate investors buy properties using what we call creative finance. And the most famous creative finance investor of them all is Pace Morby. Look, I'm Pace Morby. I'm Pace. And there are two primary ways to buy homes creatively. You can do subject to, but you can also do seller finance, owner financing. And this house here in Dallas, Texas, I'm negotiating a seller finance deal. And today I'm going to show you how to calculate a seller finance deal like a professional. How Pace Morby calculates a seller finance deal. How do you get a 0% interest deal? How do you get a $0 down payment deal? I'm gonna show you how to calculate all that right now. And here's my hint. You do it by working backwards. The seller for this property wants $200,000, but instead of giving them 200 grand cash, they are open to terms. They are open to being paid over time in monthly payment, just like how you pay a bank a mortgage when you buy a house. In this case, the seller, I don't actually know what the seller looks like. So John, put some different pictures of people. Yeah, maybe the seller looks like that. The seller, they were retiring. They don't need cash right now. They don't want the tax liability, and they want to receive passive income. So they were open to seller financing. But how do we structure the deal? Let me show you how Pace Morby structures a seller finance deal by working backwards. So this house is in a great neighborhood in Dallas, Texas. And the first thing that we need to determine is, what does it rent for as a long-term rental? All we're gonna do is plug the address into propelio.com, copy paste, click rentals, and now we're gonna comp for rent. Our house is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 1,000 square feet. And similar homes are renting for $1,800. $1,850, $1,820. So I can pretty confidently say that rent is $1,800 a month. And if y'all want to use the best comping software, try Propelio. It's only $30 a month, and you can get a 14-day free trial using my code down below in the description. The seller wants $200,000. And we know that as a long-term rental, it brings you $1,800 a month. Now that we know how much this property can make us, we can now work backwards using what Pace Morby teaches us to figure out how much we can make the seller, how much we can pay the seller every single month. We're going to work backwards to figure out the 5 terms. 1, to figure out the price. 2, to figure out the down payment. 3, we got to figure out the rate, the interest rate. 4, we have to figure out the amortization, the length of the loan. And then 5, guys, we need to figure out if we're going to do a balloon or not. And here's a little tip. Don't do a balloon. Balloons are for clowns. And I am not a clown, and Pace Morby is not a clown. We hate balloons. So we know that the seller wants his price, so what we're gonna try to do is take from these 4 terms. Hey seller, you can have full price if you meet me on my terms. So we need to get a really good down payment, a really good interest rate, a good amortization, and no balloon. How do we do that? Work backwards like Pace Morby, guys. Let's do this. So if the rent is $1,800, we now need to figure out what the PI/TI is. The PI is gonna be our mortgage to the seller because the seller is the bank. This is your loan payments. And our TI is taxes and insurance, guys. Taxes and insurance. So the first thing I want to do is figure out the taxes. Pulling this property up on Propelio, I can see that the total assessed value is $171,000. But honestly, that doesn't matter because in a state like Texas, the taxes are going to get reassessed closer to the purchase price. So for sake of being conservative, use the purchase price as your tax basis. Now you just got to multiply the purchase price by the tax rate for your county. And in Dallas County, taxes there are going to be around probably 2.2%. If you want to locate this data, you can pull it up on county tax records. Look up the address, and here is the owner's information. And I can go into current tax statements, And just like that, I have all of their tax information. Add these numbers up. 1.7, 1.8, 2.2. That was a good guess. So now we're going to multiply 200,000 by 2.2%. And that gives us $4,400 a year. Divide that by 12. That's $350 a year. I mean, a month. I wish taxes were $350 a year. Oh my God. So we have taxes at $350 a month. Insurance, how much is insurance? Well, I just know that insurance for a house like this is probably going to be anywhere from $150 to $200. This house, I'm going to say it's closer to $150. But here's the thing, you actually don't have to get insurance on the property. When you buy seller finance, you don't technically need to, unless you make that a requirement with the seller. So up to you, but you should probably insure your properties. So that gives us a grand total of $500 for PITI, right? Wrong! We're slowly working backwards, y'all. Our rent is $1,800 and our taxes and insurance is $500. Now, this is so important. This is exactly what Pace Morby does. This tells us investors that we have $1,300 to play with. This is fun money. This is the money where we can start to determine how much we can pay the sellers for the seller financing. But we forgot something. Before we calculate our PI, which is our seller finance payments, before we do that, we need to subtract for other expenses. There is something called maintenance. There is something called vacancy. Have you ever heard of that? Vacancy? There's even management, right? So if you're gonna have a management company, you gotta put all the money aside for this. I self-manage, so I'm only gonna pull 15% of the rent every single month to cover my vacancy and my maintenance. If you have a management company, pull 25% aside. So 15% of 1,800, quick math, is 260. So we just went from $1,300 of play money. Now we're at around $1,000 of play money, because that other $300, I'm gonna have to put that aside every single month. That goes wrong. And will literally go wrong. My houses right now have literal coming out of the freaking bathtubs. Every time one of the tenant uses the washing machine, it causes water and to come out of the bathtub. Oh my God! I've had 2 plumbers come out, nothing. Now we're having a 3rd one come out. So if you ever say that real estate is full passive income, it's so easy, you're wrong. You are full of like my bathtub. So now we have $1,000 to play with, guys. Now we can determine what our PI is. Now we can determine the terms. So when Pace Morby is working a seller finance deal, what does he care about? Well, as we discussed, there's 5 terms. He probably cares about the price, right? Wrong. He doesn't care about the price. What he cares about is these 4 terms, and then he gives the seller their price. This strategy works amazing if you are holding properties for the long term. However, word of caution, if you're trying to exit properties quickly, maybe in a form of a refinance, or maybe you're just going to sell the property, anytime within the next 3 or 5 years, price matters. Because when you sell the house, you got to pay the seller back their lien. And if that lien is at a really high price, well, then you can get screwed on the resale. So what I'm going to tell you here and how Pace Morby calculates his deals is he says,
hey seller, you can have your price. I'm happy to overpay for the property, 10, 20, maybe 30%, but I need really good terms.
But that only works if you're going to hold a property for a minimum, in my opinion, of 10 years, but at least 5 years, y'all. At least 5 years. Because real estate doesn't just appreciate vertically. Y'all may think that, but you live in Lulu La La land where the Federal Reserve just goes, money printing. That's not the usual. Calculate maybe 5% appreciation on average, not 50% like we used to have. Crazy. So that's my word of caution. Pace Morby has a different strategy than you may be. That's okay. You don't have to be just like Pace. You don't have to be just like me. But I just want to show you how we're calculating our deals. Now we're at the fun part, y'all. Now we're at the part of negotiations. We have all the ammo we need, except one thing. What's the house sort of actually worth? Again, we don't care about price so much, but we want to know what it's worth, but just to know for negotiation reasons. We need to double check the price. The seller wanted $200,000. Is that a good deal? We're going to flip back to Propelio. And here, look, this house, it's very similar. It's actually a little bit bigger. Inside is very rental average. I mean, check this out. This is just your average rental property. It's not ugly by any means, but hey, it's not beautiful, right? It's fine. This property sold for $180,000, which tells me that if our property's in the same condition and we're paying $200,000, we're paying maybe a little bit too much. If it's nicer, then we're getting about fair market value. So I'd say, hey, 200,000 is about fair market value. So we're really not overpaying on price so much, which is great. If I don't have to overpay on price, dude, I don't want to. I usually prefer not to. I love having instant equity personally. Pace Morby, he doesn't really care. Different investors, different mindsets. I love having instant equity. It makes me feel good at night. If I can buy a property 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% under market value, I just bought a house in Fort Worth at 45% of after repair value. That means I have like 55% equity. Insane! But again, price is just one of the 5 levers. So how do we negotiate this deal? The seller has said, hey, I want $200,000. All right. We know that the maximum that we can pay every single month, guys, our absolute maximum is $1,000. We don't want to go over this because then our property is not cash flowing. So the first thing that Pace Morby asks the seller is he says,
hey, you're the bank. I don't go to the bank and say, how much is my loan? You're the bank. You tell me. How much money do you need in profit every single month? A check, a wire is going to hit your bank account. It's going to be pure profit. How much money would you like to receive every single month?
Word of advice, shut up and listen to what the seller says. They may say,
I don't know.
Pry them a little bit. See if they'll give you a number. What are your credit card bills every month? Right? Try to get them to give you something. Or they may just give you a number. See what that number is. If it's less than 1,000, there's your number. If it's more than 1,000, okay, that's okay. We're still going to work through it. But this is a great way for the seller to anchor the negotiations. Now just know the absolute maximum you can pay is $1,000 per month. But before you give a number, this is what I want you to do. Open up an amortization calculator, put the purchase price of the house, put 30 years. Always start at 30 years, guys. Put 0% interest. Always start at 0% interest. And then calculate. $555. That means if I put $0 down and paid 0 interest over the next 360 months, the seller would receive $555 per month. That would be my first offer.
Hey seller, I can meet you on your price, but are you open to terms?
Yeah, I'm open to terms.
Great. I can pay you $555 every single month for the next 360 months.
I always start every offer, and Pace always starts his offers, guys. He doesn't give them interest off the bat. He doesn't do balloons off the bat. No. He doesn't even give down payments off the bat if he doesn't have to. Guys, he starts his offers there. Open the calculator, 0, 0, 30, price. See what you get. Don't even talk about down payment yet. See what the seller says.
Okay.
Now, if the seller brings up down payment, then say,
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to give you a down payment. How much do you need to move?
See what I did there?
How much do you need to pay off your credit card?
See what I did there?
How much do you need to fix up your broken car outside?
See what I did there? We're anchoring.
I would like maybe $5,000, maybe $10,000.
Okay, sounds good. So if I give you $10,000 and paid you around $500 a month for the next 360 months, does that sound like a good deal?
Right, guys, that's what we're doing. Give and take. So all we're doing here, guys, is we are working backwards. What we did was we started by figuring out the rent. Then we subtracted taxes and insurance. Then we subtracted for other expenses, and that gave us what I'm coining right now. I'm going to make up this term right now. Our maximum allowable monthly offer, our MAMO, which in this case is $1,000. And now what you want to do, and now what Pace does, is he pretty much says $200,000 divided by 360. 360 is a great place to start. If you can do a 50-year loan, that's great. Most people are going to want you to start at 360. That's $555 a month. You start there. If you can get that deal, well, then you're going to be cash flowing $445 every single month, and you would have paid $0 for the property, and you would have 0% interest. That is the dream deal. But what happens if the seller says, hey, I need $800 a month? What happens if the seller says, hey, I need $1,000 a month? What happens if the seller says, I need $1,200 a month? Okay, let's walk through this real quickly. All I do is change the levers. So if the seller wanted $800 a month, you can just change the levers. What if I put 3% interest? There's $843 a month. And one really cool thing, guys, about 3% interest is it usually makes the total payment received to the seller 50% more than the loan amount. So a $200,000 purchase price, the seller ends up receiving $300,000. Fun fact. So yes, you can change the lever on interest rate, but Pace Morby, he doesn't actually like to mess with the rate. He prefers to do deals with 0% interest and then change the levers on loan term, but actually price. So let me show you here. Hey seller, sure, we can just do a 20-year loan, and then that will equate to $833 a month. So instead of receiving $555 a month for 360 months, you can receive $833 for the next 240 months. It's very simple. Once you start adding interest and all this stuff, you just confuse the sellers. Don't do it. Don't talk interest. Have your seller finance deals at 0% interest. Just talk monthly payments, guys. Make it simple. That's what Pace does. So if he does it, you should do it. But the best lever and the most powerful lever, again, if you have a long-term horizon, is actually price, guys. This is insane. Check this out. Go back to 30 years here and say, hey, seller, you know what? I want to close this deal right now. You know what I'm going to do, seller? I'm going to pay you not $200,000 for your house. I'm going to pay you $220,000 for your house. Let's do this deal right now. Oh, you're going to pay me $20,000 more than I asked? That's insane. Well, yes, deal. Take it. Take the house. But why would you do that? What he doesn't know is that only equates to $611 a month. That is $200 a month cheaper than doing a 20-year loan, than doing 3% interest, just raising the purchase price 10%. So yes, if you can afford to do it in the long term, you're better off paying a little bit more for a property. It speaks volumes to the seller, and then doing 0% interest and trying to do 30 years on the amortization. Isn't that crazy? That is how Pace negotiates deals, and that's how I negotiate deals. So for example, if a seller brings me a property, we've determined the price. What I do is I take that price, I divide it by 360, and I say,
Hey, I can make you this much in payments every single month.
They usually say,
No, can I have more? Can I have less? What about the interest? What about the loan term? What about the down payment?
Okay. And I say, what if I were to pay you a little bit more for the property? What if I were to pay you, instead of X, I paid you
XY. What? You pay me that much for the property?
Absolutely, I pay you that much for the property.
Wow.
and then I negotiate a really small down payment, and there you go. You have yourself a deal. So to conclude, everybody, figure out what rent is, subtract taxes and insurance, subtract other expenses, get your mammo. Once you got your mammo, you know roughly where you can negotiate. And what are you negotiating? You're starting with 0% interest, and you're starting with, what are you negotiating? You're negotiating your terms. And what terms should you always start with? The purchase price divided by 360. That's essentially 0% interest, and that is 30 years. And now you're assuming $0 down payment, okay? Take the PP, the big PP, divided by 360. That's where I start all my offers. That's where Pace probably starts all his offers. Compare that number to your mammo, to your mammo. There's probably going to be a spread here. This is where you can negotiate. This is the area where you're negotiating. So in this case, our first offer was $555, but we know that our mammo is $1,000. That means I have about $450 to play with, $450 of negotiation room. And how am I going to negotiate that, guys? How are we going to negotiate this area here? By moving the levers, on the terms, guys. But instead of effing around with the rate, no. Don't do that. Don't F around with the rate. Move the amortization around, but especially, if you can, move the price around. That is how Pace Morby calculates a seller finance deal. Pretty insane, right? I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, please subscribe and like this video and share it with a friend. Share it with Pace. Share it with Pace. I want Pace to watch one of my videos. I love you, Pace. And you've taught me so much, and thank you. Thank you for everything you've taught me and taught the people watching this video. We would not be here without you, dude. So hopefully this video is enlightening on how to calculate and negotiate a seller finance deal. If you have questions, leave them in the comments down below. I'll answer every single question. And guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.